Hello and welcome.
Afternoon. Thank you very much for the chance to speak with you today. I realise you are now into a pretty challenging couple of weeks, so I think I've got 5 minutes and I'll be brief. It's a personal submission. I've made a number of points in my submission, but what I want to focus on today is the idea of creating a complementary currency for Christchurch. I've outlined briefly, so hopefully you've been able to digest it, the sorts of potential benefits that creating this, a local currency in Christchurch, could create for the city. I think fundamentally transforming Christchurch into a much more sustainable and resilient city is a huge opportunity for the city, but you can only go so far with resource efficiency, and you need the social dimension, you need the environmental dimension, but you absolutely need an economic dimension. And a complementary currency is a challenging enough thing to embark on, but a practical enough thing to actually be able to make it work and get into that innovative, doing things more sustainably in the economic space. It's very consistent with the goals you've expressed, which I support, of helping the communities to do more themselves. But again, the currency you design and what you're trying to achieve with it that's actually the first stage, is really working that out. So really, it's a process of trying to identify needs in the community with resources that are there that are not being joined together well enough at the moment. Money is a means to an end, and it's a means to facilitate exchange. So that's what you'd be trying to achieve with a Christchurch currency of some sort. There's lots of models from around the world that we can learn from. There's lots of advice. There are other cities that are doing this. It's not really widespread, but the innovators are there to learn from. So it's a matter of what are we trying to achieve? What are the connections that a Christchurch currency would be trying to make? What are the models that we can use that would be able to be implemented here? And you know, it's not an easy off the shelf. I can't say that's the right model and that's what we should do in Christchurch, I don't think. So it is a matter of embarking on the journey, but it's definitely a possible and I think a really exciting proposition for Christchurch, and would be getting into the world-leading space if we could do it well. So I know you have a lot on your plate, and the city does too, and keeping up with that must be a challenge. But if you don't start laying the foundations for some of these sort of more cutting-edge ideas, then they won't get off the ground. So my suggestion is, I'd love to see you say, this is an idea that's got potential. Let's approach it carefully but robustly, and start trying to make sense of this as an idea for Christchurch, and it could become an alternative, effectively an alternative funding stream, but also an alternative way of facilitating getting the work that needs doing in the city done, but getting it done in a more community-based and more beneficial way in the end to the citizens of Christchurch. So I've only got 5 minutes, so if I can answer any questions in a brief space of time, happy to do so, and otherwise good luck.
Great. Well, Ref.
I'll start, Tim. Thanks very much. We've already had another presentation on the complementary and community currencies today, so it's good to see your one.
Great.
In terms of proceeding from here, I mean, obviously this is happening around the world. I've just been sent some information from Tucson in Arizona, where they're implementing a new one as well. So what do we need to do as a council to make this happen?
I think, I mean, and we've talked about, I mean, I've seen models where I can say, gee, that one looks like it would be really good in Christchurch, and as with these complex systemic things, every place is different. So I think there's a project to basically develop a business case where you say, you know, there's some foundational work to do to look at exactly work with the community. What would we can't do everything with one currency. What would we focus on? What would we be trying to achieve? We've got to understand a little bit better the challenges, and some of those are sort of Reserve Bank financial things, but some of those will be community perception things as well. So better understand that operating space. Get some advice from people who can say, look, here's what others have done and these are the lessons they've learned, and out of that planning process be able to say, narrow down to, well, here's a couple of options that we think could really work for Christchurch. This is what it would cost to set them up. This is how they'd work. This is what the challenges would be. It's really a good practice project development business case, and you need that before you could really embark on actually committing to do it. So if you could just commit to an establishment phase, I think that would be a great step forward.
We've got 30 seconds left, and we've got David, Andrew and Phil.
Thank you. Look, I've also been approached on a number of occasions on these. Is there any sort of one place that you could say we could have a look at just to get a feel for how it's worked and implemented?
I think some of the world leading ones are Bristol and Brixton. in the UK. The Virgil one, which eventually petered out in Austria, but it's known as a really leading example. And Nantes in France have just recently established one, so understanding how they've got to getting one going would be 4 key ones to look to.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Thank you. I'm particularly interested in this area, and we've obviously had some conversations in the past about how this could work in local neighbourhoods. Littleton Harbour was our example, but I'm interested in how we could do this across the whole city. Clearly, one of the triggers of need for us would be the particular financial situation the city finds itself in at the moment. Looking at your international examples, and I agree that we've got a lot to learn from looking at where this has been done successfully elsewhere, what sort of triggers have started the complementary currency conversations in other communities? What is it that's led other communities to the point of the conversation we're having now?
I think the key driver is usually local, strengthening local economies, more local employment, more local transactions. That said, a lot of the ones where they've started from a very grassroots, created by a community group, they struggle to get enough scale to be viable. What gives money value, or one of the key things that gives money value, is it being received in taxes. And so if the council established a currency where you were prepared to accept that for payment of rates and fees, that gives that a really tangible value from the get-go. So that's where, but it's really that strengthening local economies and getting better utilisation out of local resources. So it may be about changing the thinking and focusing on working locally as much as saving that it will be necessarily cheaper, but it's about using people's time and effort and resources that don't get captured with a New Zealand dollar approach. And it's not that you couldn't do it in New Zealand dollars, but sometimes it's about just shifting the thinking as well as a key part of it.
Is your question covered? It's okay. Okay, thank you. So look, thank you very much. That's definitely food for thought. The home of Project Littleton, the Time Bank, is...
Well, Time Bank is absolutely a complementary currency.
Correct.
Its purpose is to more facilitate community interaction than, and so this would be a scale up. And that,
yeah.
But it is a spectrum. So.
Yeah.
So is your Airpoints card, of course.
Lovely. Thank you very much.